You've been programmed to be accepted, to be educated to maintain harmony, to be pleasant, to be perfect. But Carl Jung would have told you that perfection is a fiction. And if you're not careful, it turns into a cell. Because pleasing everyone doesn't automatically make you compassionate. It makes you transparent. You don't get more respect by always saying yes. You don't get more affection by always being available. You don't get more peace by remaining submissive. You gradually fade away and no one notices. You think you are helpful, collaborative, supportive, but the reality is that you are betraying yourself. And every time that happens, you teach the world that your needs do not matter, that your time is negotiable, that your boundaries are optional, that your silence is consent. But before continuing, like the video, share it with people who could benefit from it, and write in the comments from which city you follow our YouTube channel. For Carl Jung, pleasing everyone was not a form of kindness. He considered it a disguised shadow, a behavioral facade used to protect oneself from exclusion, comparison, or separation. But here is the reality. The more you conform, the more you will be exploited, not because people are evil, but because people respond to what you allow. And if you never reveal the parts of yourself that want to reject, that want to disagree, that want to be respected, you will become a shell, a figure molded to fit everyone else's expectations. And one day you will wake up and wonder why you are exhausted, why you are bitter, why you feel artificial, why no one really knows you. Jung had a term for this: the mask, the face you have been forced to show. The mask is that version of you that was shaped by your parents, by your society, by your educators to be acceptable, to fit in, to gain consensus, to avoid punishment, to resist. And you needed it. Somehow you still need it. You can't live your life expressing every thought and acting on instinct. You need a facade for the world, for social roles, for stability. But here's the risk that Jung had highlighted. When you believe that your facade is your true nature, you lose your essence. Because you're not here to be accommodating. You're here to be genuine. You're not here to fit into everyone else's narrative. You're here to create your own narrative. But you can't do that if your first impulse is to please everyone. And that's what people who want to please everyone don't understand until it's too late. Every time you avoid refusal, you accept self-destruction, the high price of being liked. You think that speaking your mind means bearing a cost, that is confrontation. But the real cost is resentment. You think that refusing is selfish, but the real selfishness is remaining silent while secretly harboring resentment toward everyone because they don't understand you. You think that making people happy is virtuous, but the real virtue is to have such clear boundaries that no one has to guess who you are. Jung understood that repression breeds distortion, and when you repress your anger, your impulses, your expression, you no longer become compassionate. You become passive-aggressive, resentful, and detached because you know deep down that you are not being sincere. You are performing, you are acting, you are managing people's reactions instead of manifesting your reality. And eventually your body will show it to you. Always tired, drained, isolated, terrified of disappointing, overthinking every response, overanalyzing every exchange. This is not gentleness. This is emotional slavery. And it gets worse because the more you please people, the more you teach them to expect your submission. You train them to trample on you, and they will. Not always because they are ruthless, but because you have accepted so often, they have stopped believing that you could refuse. You can't be loved if you're not known. The people you're trying so hard to please don't know the real you. They only know the elaborate version you've presented to them. And now you're afraid to transform. Because if you suddenly set boundaries, they will say you have changed. They will say you are selfish. They will say you are detached. But that is not the reality. The reality is that they have simply become accustomed to your silence, your meekness, your submissiveness. And when you start to be honest, it feels like an offense. Not because you are hurting them, but because your sincerity is finally defending you. Jung would say, this is when individuation begins. Individuation is not self-improvement, it is self-mastery. It is the process of becoming a fully integrated human being with a backbone, a shadow, a voice, and a rejection that means something. And until you get there, you will always feel a little incomplete, as if something is missing, as if your existence does not belong to you completely. This is not depression. It is your true self trying to wake up, trying to shout through your artificial smiles, trying to emerge in your complacent communications, trying to break out of the script you have been playing for years. And the only way to get rid of it is to stop pleasing. What happens when you finally stop? People will get upset. Some will get irritated. Some will leave. Some will try to make you feel guilty so you can go back to being weak. Letter. This is not cruelty. This is clarity, because you are not here to please others. You are here to be whole. You are here to say what needs to be said, to set boundaries that disappoint others but protect your essence. Walking away from people who only liked you when you were easy to manipulate. Jung would tell you that this is not selfishness. This is your awakening. And now we will explore the psychology of that awakening. Why pleasing others is rooted in childhood survival. How to recognize when your mask is dominating you. And how to begin the process of breaking the patterns without losing your relationships or yourself. Carl Jung didn't call it pleasing others. He called it self-betrayal, because you weren't born that way. You didn't come into the world hoping to please everyone. You weren't created to accept when you meant to reject. You were not built to hide your reality just to preserve harmony. You were educated, trained, conditioned. And the worst part is that you thought it was love. You thought that keeping quiet made you mature. You thought that sacrificing your needs made you generous. You thought that suppressing your emotions made you strong. But the truth, it made you disappear. And the person that people love, the person they admire, the person they count on, the person they praise, is not really you. It is your mask. How the mask is formed. Jung defined the mask as the facade that you wear to survive the demands of society. It's not fake, it's functional. You wear it to deal with school, family, relationships, work. It helps you adapt. It helps you survive. But when you start identifying with the facade, when you forget where it ends and where it begins, you lose the one thing that makes life real. Authenticity. And that's exactly what happens to chronically pleasers. Somewhere in childhood, they learned that being honest meant being rejected, that expressing frustration meant being punished, that being needy meant being selfish. So they adapted. They smiled when they wanted to cry. They accepted when they wanted to protest. They behaved humbly so that others could feel important. They learned that affection is not received, it is earned through performance. And so the facade became permanent. What Jung knew that modern psychology misses, most modern advice tells you to talk, set boundaries, take care of yourself. It seems sensible. But Jung went deeper. He believed that pleasing others is not just a behavioral problem. It is a fracture of the soul. Because when you abandon your true self repeatedly, you don't just lose your voice, you lose your identity. You start to wonder, who am I without this role? What if people leave when I stop giving? Will anyone stay if I finally speak up? These aren't superficial fears. They're existential because your survival depended on being liked. And now you've confused being liked with being safe. But the problem is, every time you choose safety over truth, you lose a little more of yourself. You become someone others rely on, but no one really knows you. And that's the secret most people never admit. Everyone pleases, but it always feels fake, because deep down, you know they're loving a version of you that doesn't even exist. He's loving the agreeable you, the trustworthy you, the flexible you. But what happens when you're tired? What happens when you have boundaries? What happens when you finally stop giving in? That's when affection disappears, and what's left? Guilt, silence, insecurity. But Jung would say, well, because it's the beginning of your true existence. Individuation, becoming whole, not being liked. Jung's idea of individuation is the antidote to people's failure. It is the process of reuniting with your shadow. The parts of you that you have exiled to be accepted. Your anger, your selfishness, your pride, your truth. Individuation does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming whole. It means saying, yes, I care about others, but I also care about myself. Yes, I desire peace, but not at the cost of my truth. Yes, I love you, but I will not betray myself to keep you. This is not rebellion. This is maturity. And if someone can't handle it, let them go. Because Jung believed that the self does not emerge through approval. It emerges through conflict, by confronting people who are used to your silence, by disappointing those who only loved your complacency, by risking rejection to become real. And here's the twist. When you stop pleasing people, you don't lose relationships. You lose the unbalanced ones. You lose the people who benefited from your abandonment, and make room for the people who see you, love you, and can be around you without having to control you. How to know if your mask is controlling you? Jung said, the mask is dangerous when it becomes too rigid, when you are always the strong one, always the gentle one, always the calm one, always the understanding one. And it's not a tool, it's a cage. And you'll know you're trapped when you feel exhausted after socializing. You second-guess every decision. You're afraid of disappointing others. You say yes out of fear, not desire. You feel invisible even in the most intimate relationships. These are not small problems. They are signs that your identity is crumbling under the pressure of performance. And the longer you pretend, the more you lose yourself. Not because you're weak, but because the facade has become too convincing. And now, you can't even figure out where it ends. But here's the good news. The moment you realize that, you are free to change. You don't need permission. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need courage. The courage to stop before saying yes. The courage to let others feel disappointed. The courage to walk away from approval and toward authenticity. Carl Jung didn't want you to become rude or cold. He wanted you to be so aligned with your truth that no one could manipulate you anymore. And now we're going to explore exactly how to do that. How to stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. How to rebuild your identity outside of being a nice person. And how to become someone who is respected, not just tolerated. All without becoming cold, bitter, or fake. By now, something inside you is changing. You are starting to see how much of your life has been an act. How much of your identity has been built on making others comfortable. How often you have accepted when your whole being whispered no. And maybe for the first time you're asking yourself, who am I when I stop pleasing others? That's not an easy question. It's not just about changing your behavior. It's about changing the foundation of who you've been trained to be. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone, because when you stop pleasing others, you don't just lose comfort, you lose your old self. And what comes in its place is not someone cruel or bitter. He is someone real. Someone who doesn't need to be liked to be at peace. Someone who doesn't need approval to feel worthy. Someone who can refuse without guilt and accept without fear. This is true individuation. Not spiritual fluff, not moral perfection, but the raw, uncomfortable truth that becomes identity. So how do you become that person? Let's take it one step at a time. First, recognize the guilt cycle for what it is. When you first stop pleasing others, you feel guilty. You feel it in your stomach, in your throat, in your silence. You feel like you're bad, like you're disappointing others, like you're doing something wrong. But Jung would say, this is not guilt. This is withdrawal. You are detoxing from a life of approval addiction. You are experiencing the emotional discomfort of having to reclaim your power after years of giving it away. Sure, it is heavy, but this heaviness is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that you are finally freeing yourself. Let the guilt come. Don't fight it. Don't overanalyze it. Feel it and do the right thing anyway. This is how power returns to the space where guilt no longer dictates your actions. 2. Redefine your value. People who try to please everyone derive their value from one thing: how useful they are to others. If you are helpful, you feel worthy. If you are needed, you feel safe. If you are liked, you feel important. But Jung would tell you that it is not worth it. It is a conditional performance. And the danger: the moment you stop being useful, you feel replaceable. So the work is simple but not easy. You have to redefine what makes you valuable. Not your usefulness, not your sacrifice, not your conformity, but your truth, your presence, your boundaries, your ability to be fully yourself, even when it disappoints people. That is where your true value lies, not in what you do for others, but in what you no longer do against yourself. Third, learn to disappoint without apologizing. Let this be your next milestone. You can disappoint people and still be good, kind, and worthy. You can say no without exaggerating, without apologizing, without sugarcoating it to make her feel better. Because every time you loosen your boundaries to protect someone else's feelings, you reinforce the lie that your needs are dangerous. They're not. They're sacred. Carl Jung believed that integrating the shadow is what makes a person whole. And your ability to be misunderstood without falling apart is part of that shadow work. You are not here to manage what other people think of you. You are here to ground yourself in who you are, especially when people don't understand. 4. Start small. Stay adamant. You don't need to announce your new identity. You don't need to prove how confident you are. You don't need to argue with anyone who doubts you. Just start small. Don't answer right away. Don't explain every no. Don't apologize too much for things that aren't wrong. Don't offer more than you want to give. Let it be. Be consistent, and soon something magical happens. People start to recalibrate their expectations of you. They stop pushing, they stop assuming, they stop drying up, because you have trained them through your silence, your firmness, and your peace, to the point that you are no longer there to please them. You are here to be whole. 5. Embody the new standard. Once you stop pleasing, you will start attracting differently. People who loved your compliance will leave. Let them. This is proof that you are being used, not loved. And in their place will come people who will respect your silence, will live up to your honesty, will support your growth, will love you for your truth, not for your actions. But that only happens if you embody the new standard. Not once, not when it's easy, but every day, in every conversation where you feel that old part of you wanting to bend again. Don't bend. Feel the impulse. Hold the line. Breathe deeply into the moment. Because every time you don't betray yourself, you become stronger. And that strength, that subtle, deep-seated, silent mastery of yourself is what, according to Jung, leads to true transformation, not to external success, not to validation, but to internal wholeness. Final words. After this, you will no longer please people, not because you are cold, but because you have become conscious. Carl Jung did not want you to become cruel. He wanted you to wake up, to stop showing off, to stop flattering, to stop bleeding your soul for people who would not even give you a bandage. He wanted you to become someone who is clear in saying no, honest in your presence, grounded in your discomfort, whole even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because those who truly heal are not always the ones who like it. They are the ones who are free.